Here's something you probably didn't know about me. I'm a knight. No, not the type in shining armor. Find out more about that and another great wine in this episode of Tuesday Night Wines. Hi, welcome to Tuesday Night Wines. I'm John Lennart. Welcome back after a break we've had for the holidays. We hope you had a great chance to share some amazing wines with friends and family. But it's time to get back to our Tuesday Night Wines. It's time to get back to looking for a little more value. You know, the holidays were a time to splurge. That's over. Now we're looking for value in wine again. Like I said in the opening, I'm a knight. Well, not really a knight. I'm what's called a cavaliero in the Confraria do Vinho de Porto, which is the Brotherhood of Port Wine. Cavaliero is the Portuguese word for knight. It's a trade organization meant to promote port wine, but it's made up of world leaders. It's made up of winemakers, port makers, and leaders in the port industry, and as well as people like myself who are journalists who do promote port wine. So what is port wine? Well, port's a pretty complicated subject, but if you break it down and look at it, it's actually a fairly easy thing to digest and understand. So port wine is a fortified wine. It's a wine that's had a brandy added to it to stabilize it. So why do we fortify wine? Well, back hundreds of years ago, the British, they liked their wine, but they were constantly at war with their wine trading partner, France. So they had a hard time getting the fine wines that they demanded. They went to Portugal. Portugal made some beautiful wines. The problem is on that longer journey to England, the wines often went bad. They didn't survive the journey. So in order to help stabilize the wine and make it age longer, what the winemakers did was they added a brandy to the wine. And what that did was help the wine be a little beefier and make that journey successfully. So this brandy that's used isn't really brandy like you buy in a bottle and put in a snifter and sip on. It's really more like a distilled grape brandy before aging, so more like a grappa really. And the way port is made is the grapes are grown. There's many different varieties of grapes that can be used to make port wine, but generally they stick to about 5 main varieties, Touriga Nacional being the primary variety. When the wine's made and it begins to ferment, once it gets to about 7% alcohol, the brandy is added. And what that brandy does is it kills the yeast and stops the fermentation of the sugars in that wine. So you get a wine that's a little sweeter. Also, that brandy is pretty high in alcohol, and it raises the alcohol of the wine to about 20%. So when you're having a normal glass of wine, you're probably drinking a wine that's somewhere between 12 and 15% alcohol, where port is a little bit higher than that. Port's going to be about 20% alcohol, and a little bit sweeter because the sugars from the base wine haven't been completely converted into alcohol, so there's quite a bit of sugar left over. So they're a fairly young wine. They're juicy and tasty, again, a little high in alcohol, and really delicious. But oftentimes, port gets a little bit of a bad image. You know, people think of port wine and it's old British wine snobs sitting around in high back leather chairs in their gentlemen's club sipping on port.
Stop it. Get some help.
Now, port wine comes from Portugal, and it comes from the Douro Valley, which is in the northeast part of Portugal, along the Douro River. The Douro River heads through Portugal and ends up along the coast in a city called Porto, or O Porto. And Porto is where all the big port houses are located. Now, one of the great things about port is it's an after-dinner digestif. It could be had along with dessert. It's great with chocolate. Or the classic really is with Stilton cheese. Stilton is a British blue cheese. Ruby port and Stilton cheese, it's such a great pairing, I can't even explain it to you. You got to try it. Or, you know, on a nice winter's night by the fire, just a glass of port on its own is really a delicious treat. So, let's give the wine a taste. First of all, if you look at this wine, it's unctuous. It's got a viscosity to it. It's thick, deep purple, really intense color. Give it a little smell. Wow. Big. Blackberry, black currant, blueberry. There's cedar notes, a little bit of tobacco. Yeah, now we'll give it a little taste, see how the taste goes. Again, blackberry, blueberry, black currant. A little bit of heat from that alcohol. It's there. It's not overpowering the wine at all. The wine's big enough on its own, but you get a little bit of heat of the alcohol. And while the flavor just lingers, and it's really something special. So what is the wine? The wine is Fonseca Bin 27. It's a Ruby Port, non-vintage. You can get this wine pretty inexpensively, about $19 a bottle. I actually found it for a little bit less even than that at Binny's. Fairly widely available, so it shouldn't be too hard for you to find it at one of your larger wine retailers. It might even be available in some supermarkets. As a member of the Conferia do Vinho do Porto, I actually got to meet the winemaker from Fonseca and sit down and talk with him. I interviewed him in my podcast, The Honest Pour. I'll put a link to that podcast below. If you're looking for a nice kind of winter, sit by the fire, evening time sipper, you can't go wrong with Fonseca Bin 27 Ruby Port. And the really nice thing about port is, because it's been fortified, you don't have to drink the bottle in 1 or 2 days. You can actually stuff the cork back in it, and this bottle will last, after you open it, anywhere between 4 and 6 weeks. So you got a long time to go through this bottle. You know, this isn't a bottle of wine that you're going to open up and drink over a night or two just because the alcohol is so high. It's something that you should sip on and enjoy. Stuff the cork back in. You know, a couple nights later, have another one, and you got quite a while to finish that bottle off. Well, that's it for this episode of Tuesday Night Wines. Thanks for joining me. Please do me a favor and subscribe to my channel and click like below. It means a lot to me if you do that. When you click subscribe, you'll find out when I release new wine content and get that right away. Thanks for joining me. Cheers.